off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin. Would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. You can also watch us, facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, youtube.com, The Hockey Podcast, where we are hanging strong at the Andre Markov, number 79 of subscribers. So you can click on that subscribe button and tell your friends about that, as well as you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts when this is done. It is a wonderful Sunday. We say hello, Chris. Hello. How are you, Chris?
hello. I'm doing well. How about you, Kev?
I'm doing good. Just kind of enjoying the sunny, cloudy Vancouver weather as is. No rain, but yes. Yeah. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Kevin.
How's it, Tower?
It's going all right. Just a break, a little bit of a reprieve to this Sunday for hockey after 15 games yesterday. There's only one today.
I know, that's crazy. It was a really busy day for hockey. There were the 15 NHL games, and then the WHL closed. Some of the WHL closed up, and then there was the U18s. We'll get to that later. And then there's Devin. Hello, Devin.
Good job.
And I think, how are things?
Just fucking peachy. So damn good.
Time of the swear, 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Yeah, just dealing with more bullshit from the government, but at least we have hockey to talk about.
Yes, we do. And if you do have any questions, we will get to them. Canuck Clay is going to join us in about 45 minutes to an hour. So if you do have questions for him, that Tyler is golfing, and his hair, I think, has joined him as well. When did we get Tyler's hair? Anyway, Tyler will not be joining us. But we're going to get through talk hockey here, and we are going to start. We're going to go backwards. We're going to start with, we usually end with other NHL and then go with the teams, but we're going to go backwards. And partially because the Edmonton Oilers, for the first time since 2016, it's been 5 years since the Edmonton Oilers have clinched a playoff spot. They did that last night with a 4-1 win over the Calgary Flames. That was not a 4-1 game. It was a lot closer than that. But the Edmonton Oilers, the McDavids, they are going to be in the playoffs with Devin's Toronto Maple Leafs. Those two have clinched. Now, I know that there's a lot of Calgary Flame fans that are like, it's all about Connor if it wasn't for Connor McDavid, which is mostly fair comment, but I do think that we give the Oilers a little bit of credit. Mike Smith got the job done. McDavid and Draisaitl did their thing. Darnell Nurse, I think Darnell Nurse deserves some credit. I think he's probably in the conversation for the Norris Trophy. Adam Larson stepped up. I guess congratulations. We begrudgingly congratulate the Edmonton Oilers this morning?
I mean, we can.
Nobody even wants to. It's like, yeah, screw you guys. Whatever.
Good for them. It just did quick research. It was 2016-17 when they
right. Okay. Yeah.
made the playoffs last time and officially made the playoffs last time, and got to round 2. And but yeah, I know it's been a long time coming for Oilers fans, and especially friend of the show Graham Mosiman. But as a Canucks fan, there's only one team that I will congratulate when it comes to Canadian teams, and that's the Canucks.
Fair enough. I tip my cap. I mean, it's, I get it. We don't like them, but they found a way to do it. And Devin, do you see the Oilers as a threat to your Toronto Maple Leafs?
No. I will congratulate them. I think that they even though it is the Connor McDavid show up there, he's still on the team. He's still a player. Whether or not it is a one-man show or a two-man show, with Draisaitl there as well, I think overall you got to give them props. They've worked hard this year, and they made it. That's end all and be all of it. What they do in the playoffs, who knows what's going to happen. I'm a bit biased towards Toronto, of course, but I think that Toronto does have the better overall team. So that's why I don't think that there's much to really be worried about if you're a Toronto fan. But once again, it's the playoffs. You never know what's going to happen.
Chris, how are you feeling?
Like how we said, you can't, you're never going to see me cheer for the Oilers. But is it a feel-good story for them? Sure. So will I give them a polite golf clap? Sure. That's about as much you're going to get out of me.
That's entirely fair. Fair enough.
I think one player that we haven't mentioned yet, and I think deserves a lot of credit for what he's done this season for the Oilers, is Mike Smith. You can say it's been the McDavid show, and it's a one or two player team, but Mike Smith's come back from the dead and is putting up a .924 save percentage this year. When he was .902, .898 in the past 2 seasons before this. So he's found a way to give him the goaltending that they need.
Yeah, he hasn't, I say this, .924 save percentage is nothing to seize at, but he hasn't. I don't recall seeing highlights of this incredible save that Mike Smith has saved, but he's done the job. He's done, I think you could argue from a Flames perspective last night, they didn't take a lot of advantage of Smith roaming around. And I still think overall there's a concern there. The other concern I would have at the Oilers is their second line production. Yes, McDavid and Draisaitl. McDavid is the unanimous MVP. Let's just put it out there. I'm going to continue to say that. But their second line production, I think they need a little bit more when they play the Winnipegs or the Torontos or the Montreals. We'll talk about them in a second. So that's the one thing that I would be concerned about. But hey, they're in the playoffs. So kudos to them. And yeah, kudos to Mike Smith, a guy that a lot of people had left for dead. The Oilers went after Markstrom pretty hard. They actually offered Markstrom more money than the Flames paid him, and he ended up staying with the Flames, and good on him. A lot of people thought the Oilers were done with that goaltending question, and he did it. So I guess you got to give him at least credit for that.
Yeah, you do. As far as your secondary scoring there, Kev, you got to expect Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to be able to step up and carry a bit of that load as well, because he's a good two-way player, but overall he really needs to basically carry a line for them, because last night they had McLeod centering that line with him. So they don't have an overall team, but if McDavid does McDavid things and Draisaitl is steady the way he is, then you got to expect them to do pretty well, along with Mike Smith playing the way he is right now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, down the East, we thought they were done. I mean, not done, but we thought Like, we had a whole debate about this if the North was in a playoff race, and the reason that the North was in the playoffs race was not really because of the Vancouver Canucks, and not really because of the Calgary Flames, although we'll get to them in a quick second here, and not really because of the Ottawa Senators, but the Montreal Canadiens looked like they were on a free fall, and they came back against Winnipeg and won, and then last night, down 2-0 to the Ottawa Senators. They take it to overtime, and while Matvei Metsov for the Russians is trying to make history at the U18s, a former U18 superstar named Cole Caufield scored his first National Hockey League goal in overtime. Here it is, beautiful goal. Cole Caufield, the guy that they were trying to get into the lineup, made his debut on Monday. The Montreal Canadiens look pretty much like they have slammed that door shut and will make the playoffs and maybe finish third place. And everyone is just sitting there silent. Does anybody care?
No, it was great.
Care?
A great goal from Cole Caulfield. All that kid does is score. And adding him into the lineup for the Habs going forwards is going to be good for them. They still got a lot of good depth in the on the wings, and if Suzuki can take it to the next level, I think they have a chance to do something. They're only 2 points back of Winnipeg, and Winnipeg's on a 6-game losing streak. So yeah, there might be a chance for finishing third place, but honestly, I hope they finish fourth because I want to see a Toronto-Montreal playoff series out of this season.
It would be fun. It would be a hell of a lot of fun to see a Montreal-Toronto series. Just from the historic perspective, the fan bases, that would be fun. And Winnipeg and Edmonton would be a fun series as well. Those two fan bases as well. Devin, do you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I would love to see either or. Obviously, like you said, Kev, the historic of the history between those two teams, Toronto and Montreal, is definitely there, obviously. But even if it was Winnipeg as well versus Toronto, I wouldn't. Both series would be amazing. There's been a lot of animosity between Montreal or Toronto and Winnipeg this year, so I would love to see that as well. And maybe we'll see, depending on how whichever series or whoever plays Edmonton, that series. If Toronto moves on, then you'll see that secondary series as well.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, overall, yeah, we can see that. I mean, I think we'll have. I feel like just for the vibe in the room, it's very tough for most of us to have this conversation because following the Flames and following the Canucks, we're not in the playoffs. Our teams are not in the playoffs, but I think we'll end up having some interesting matchups either way, and a lot of controversy and a lot of things to talk about going forward. I think that's is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, Devin was right in terms of Winnipeg and Toronto being a good matchup as well. With the recent history they've had, so either way, it's gonna be fun, a fun series to watch. Like I said, I just want to see Toronto Montreal. We haven't seen that in forever, and I think it's time. I would really like to see that. That being said, Toronto Edmonton Montreal in a first round, and Toronto Winnipeg, when you're not going to ever see that unless it's a cup final going forwards, that's kind of cool as well.
Yeah. Maybe next week at some point we'll talk about if the Scotia North should return and have that debate, but we'll save that for another time.
I have a feeling it's not going to be that much of a debate. I have a feeling it's going to be a resounding no.
Probably. On my end, it's a resounding no, and maybe just quickly, it's probably because there wasn't a lot of dramatics for this. I think, especially for the Canucks, this year has been complete shit. time of the swear, 15 minutes, 21 seconds. I'm getting him out before Clay comes. So, but I mean, and for the Flames, I think this year has been complete shit. So, time of that swear, 15:33. But I just, it's a resounding no for me. I look forward to Western Conference hockey. And I don't think I think overall it's not an advantage for the Eastern Canadian teams or the Western Canadian teams to have that division. And I don't think it's these rivalries that everyone expected. I just don't. I don't think it was what everyone hoped. I think for me, just quickly, this has been a disappointment.
I disagree. I think that we have gotten it. It's just, as you said, with everything that's gone on, it's taken away from it. Vancouver and Ottawa have had, how many fights has happened between those two teams? We've got how snippy Winnipeg and Toronto got. We've gotten I just think we've gotten what it's what I expected. It just, because of no fans, everything that's gone on, it just is taken away from it.
But I just don't think we have the playoff drama. I think that's the problem with about 8 to 10 games left. We already know which 4 teams are going to be in the playoffs. I think from that perspective is what I'm disappointed in. Yeah, we got Steve Simmons and Matt Sakaras yelling at Sid 6-0. We got Canucks fans angry at Damian Cox. We had Dwayne Simmons out. We've had, we had a bunch of stuff. We had Connor McDavid and the elbows and the Montreal Canadiens. We had some new things, but I don't feel that this comes away. I'm not coming away with this saying, man, I hope this comes back. That's,
it was
maybe
a nice one-off.
Yeah, it's a nice one-off, but yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it for another year, to be honest with you. Just because to create rivalries, you need to have a certain amount of time playing against that certain team. I do miss the Western Conference specific division aspect to it, but if it goes on for one more year, I'm not going to be upset about it, because we know that eventually it will go back to what the normal is and what normal would be. I mean, for the love of God, hopefully, but you just got to take it for what it is. And there's no playoff race drama towards what's happened this year, but it at least from a Flames perspective, there's no ifs, ands, or buts of what needs to happen in the offseason. Saying, oh, we made the playoffs. Okay, now do we keep Johnny Money? And all those questions about that roster pretty much are solidified. And I believe even if they did make the playoffs, those questions would still be solidified no matter what. But at least there's no question about it now.
Yeah. Well,
I think just one more thing on this isn't we didn't get the playoff race that we were hoping for, but that comes down to some extracurricular issues. What happened with the Canucks, how the Flames didn't perform up to what everyone thought going into it. The actual setup, I think, for a one-off, maybe a two seasons is fine, but again, it's just, I think they have to find a way to get back to the normal divisions as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think we're just all craving some normalcy, maybe. Just my hunch here, but yeah. To transition though quickly to the Flames, and I wanted to get Devin's opinion on this because we did not get a chance. Sean and I discussed this on Wednesday, and Chris, you're welcome, of course, as well. Should the Calgary Flames have signed Tyler Toffoli? This was an idea from Will Null from Sportsnet 960. Should the Calgary Flames have signed Tyler Toffoli and kept Cam Talbot and not signed Jacob Markstrom?
What is one of the most important positions in hockey? A goalie. Cam Talbot, he's a really good goalie. He's a good 1A option for you. He's done very well in Minnesota this year. But for long-term success, I believe that Markstrom is the key to the Calgary Flames. solidifying that, because Talbot has had his ups and downs, and Markstrom has too, but he's been more consistent throughout his tenure. Once he kind of made himself a top 10 goalie within this league. Cam Talbot, he, like I said, great goalie, but he's not quite at the same caliber as Markstrom is. Tyler Toffoli, yeah, he's a right wing shot. It would have helped on the right side for sure, but to me, it's not a no-brainer, but it really doesn't make sense to me to be thinking that way. For short-term success, sure. Tyler Toffoli, he's 30 around there. I don't see the long-term success within having Toffoli and Talbot within the organization. I think that they made the right decision in going in for Markstrom. Sorry, Will, I don't agree with your take there, Billy Boy, but it's a cool thought process, though, I guess.
I think how well Toffoli's performed this season, it makes it for an interesting discussion. But his career shooting percentage is 11.1%, while he's shooting it at 18.1% this season. So he's having one amazing season, but how sustainable is it to have that? So I think I was with you there, Dev, and saying that they made the right decision going after Markstrom. And what Markstrom, you haven't seen the best of Markstrom since he signed and played put the Flames jersey on. He's learning he had to learn one system and then a second one, as well as changing up, not living in Vancouver and moving to Calgary. So I think next season is going to be you'll see a lot better from Markstrom next season, I think.
Chris?
It is a fair argument. I actually am kind of surprised that I'm on the opposite end of this. I actually think it would be a decent gamble to have Toffoli and a Talbot combo, keeping them as opposed to going after Markstrom. Like Devin has alluded to, Talbot has been more than serviceable in Minnesota this season, and I think if you still had him in Calgary and you bet on Toffoli, and if he was destined to have this season with how much he's been scoring, I feel like you're kind of kicking yourselves by not having pursued him if that's what the Flames ended up doing.
To that too, though, are we looking at this year's success, or are we looking at the long-term success of the Flames, right? And so weighing those two things out is, okay, did we think we were going to do very well this year at the beginning of the year? Absolutely. I thought, and everybody else thought that, or the majority of the of people around hockey thought that they would have been in the playoffs, and that was a no-brainer, a no-doubter. But obviously, there's too many warts on this team right now. So to think that would be, as far as this year goes, to think that would have been the game breaker of having a Tyler Toffoli on the team, okay, sure. But once again, going back to my original thought of figuring out whether or not to blow this team up or not, we all know where the majority of Flames fans are, and they need to blow up this team, and they need to start dishing out trades here with Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau, or whoever that may be. So I just feel like it'd be false hope thinking that Tyler Toffoli would have made a big difference this year, and if he did, I don't think it would have been beneficial for the organization going forward.
Well, and I also think too, going into the year, I think there was higher expectations. There was expectations that Dylan Dubé would take a step, and he didn't take the step. I'm not saying that he's a horrible hockey player when I say this, but I don't think Dylan Dubé has had the year that the Flames were hoping. I think that's been part of it. I don't think that they were expecting Matthew Tkachuk to struggle the way he did. And Johnny has played very well the last little bit here. This has been the best I've seen Johnny look in a while, but that was probably a little too late. And then you had the coaching change. You had so many other things that fall into place that I don't think that it's as simple as to say if they went Cam, Talbot, and Tyler Toffoli, everything would be the same. They were trying to fill that top six role in as financially efficient of a way as they possibly could, and the players that they chose didn't work out. And I don't blame Tree for that. That you got to give some of that blame to the player. I mean, I think you look at a guy like Devin. We talked about Dominic Simone. He did produce in the National Hockey League before. It was not unexpected to at least produce a little bit more than he did. That was a massive failure. But that, I mean, people will blame Tree, but some of this has to go to the player too.
For sure. Blaming Tree for getting Dominic Simone under $1 million, like, it's a gamble, right? And anytime that you really take a look at it as taking a step back, and not as a fan, but as a hockey decision, I'd say it's a decent gamble. And, you know, Sidney Crosby had a lot of good things to say about Dominic Simone before the year. And, you know, yeah, he played with Sidney Crosby. That's where most of his success was. So take that with a grain of salt. But I don't know. I don't see that. And everybody knows that I do like Tree Living, and I do like the moves that he has made, and not saying that he's perfect, because he's not. But that move, I don't think, was a massive failure in the long run. I mean, you tried Michael Ferland on that top line. You tried a handful of people, Sam Bennett, who's doing amazing down in Florida, and we'll get to him a bit later. But you have tried all these different players with them. Why not try a veteran that has shown that he can play with top end players and has been successful with those top end players, like a Sidney Crosby? And I know it's an outlier once again, but I don't see it as much of a failure as maybe some people have. And Kevin, you are right; it's on the player as well.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's just that one. It's the fact that it's the combination of Simone, Nordstrom, and Levo, and I think all three of them were good chances and lottery tickets to buy, but they just none of them worked out. And not only did that, as you said, Dubé didn't quite take the step, but has still shown some promise. But Mangiapane took a step, and that was big. That's big for the Flames. That helps them. That could potentially help them move on from one of the big two. But next season is also a bit of a wild card too. Like if it goes back to the quote unquote normal alignment with Seattle coming in as well, that Pacific Division, you've got Edmonton and Vegas, and then it's wide open. Vancouver, Calgary, the California teams aren't great. Seattle's a mystery. The final two playoff spots for that in that Pacific Division are out for the taking next season for whichever one of those six teams is has the ability to step up. So not like it's not necessarily just blow it all up and rebuild and go from there. You still have it. Like there's still a chance to make the playoffs next year with the right moves.
Because you do have a number one goalie in Markstrom. Depends on which player Seattle takes in the expansion draft, and that could be a Backlund, that could be a Mark Giordano. It could be one of the young guys, depending on which way Tree Living decides to go. And I feel like once that happens, that's kind of not the defining factor, but that could be a very, very helpful way for Tree Living to go. Say if they do take a Mark Giordano, then you need another defenseman there, and hopefully Balmakin can take another step this year, and Anderson on the back end could be better. So whoever he decides to trade, and whatever trade he gets back or players he gets back really depends on the success of the Flames. But down the middle, that's the second most important position in hockey in my mind, is who's going to be running down the middle. and who's going to be on their right side. So we'll see.
One of the things last night that I think was a factor, 35% in the face-off circle just doesn't get it done. And that's what they were last night.
Yep.
That's a huge problem that I think that they have to rectify in some way, shape, or form.
Especially with Daryl Sutter. He loves the number one center.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, they don't necessarily have your stereotypical number one center. What they have are three really good number twos, like who would be amazing behind a true number one on a cup contender. They were like in very different ways. They remind me a lot. All three of them, Backlund, Monahan, and Lindholm, all remind me in different ways of how effective Ryan Kessler was and productive he was on the Canucks cup contender team when they had Henrik sitting as your true number one. Then you had Ryan Kessler taking tougher minutes and playing that role. All three of those centers, well, especially Backlund and Lindholm, can do that. They can penalty kill. They can be on the power play. They can take the tougher minutes for defensive assignments, but they're not none of them necessarily have the full game that you want from a true number one center.
I think this year with Lindholm, I think that now that we finally know that he's going to be a center, I'm going to be interested in what his off season is going to look like. And I still think he has the potential to develop into that number one center. I'm not saying he was this year, but I think he has the potential to do that. Monahan, Backlund, Ryan. I would like to see the Flames keep Ryan. I don't know if Devin agrees with me on that. I know Sean wants Ryan on the Canucks next year. And then Monahan and Backlund. Very interesting questions what you do with them. I can see why you would want to trade them, but I also could see the argument of why you keep them as well.
I would think that you'd really want to keep Lindholm at center and potentially put a package together, Gaudreau, a prospect and a pick for a very good 1A, 1B center. And then potentially, if you want to go down the route of what was rumored was Monahan for a Dumba or something along those lines. And then you'd solidify your defensive pairing a little bit here, and you'd be able to get that number one center or 1A, 1B kind of combo between Lindholm and whoever that player who we would trade for would be. I would love to see Derek Ryan back on a 1-year deal. I'm sure he'll be looking for a 2-year deal somewhere else. I'm just worried about his age because he's in his mid-30s, and there's a lot of yes, he didn't make it until later in his career, so the miles of being a mid-30-year-old isn't quite there, and the way that he plays is a bit safer as far as wear and tear on the body. But that'd be my only criticism if he does come back, is that it would only be for 1 year, not 2. And obviously at a lesser cap hit too, because just over $3 million for him is a lot.
Yeah, the Flames are going to try and improve their roster. They can't be paying a fourth line center $3.1 million.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But I'm just saying I'd like to see him back. I don't know how that would work. The one guy that is gone and continues to blossom in Florida is Sam Bennett. Now 12 points in 10 games. Devin, what are your thoughts? Does that say more right now? Is it too early to talk about Sam Bennett as a prosperous Florida Panther, or is this an indication of what the Calgary Flames didn't do with him? What in your mind is going on there?
It's a change of scenery. I truly believe that he was just itching for a chance outside of the Calgary Flames, because when you get pigeonholed in an organization, the mental aspect of that player is just, I'm sure it's just shit, and you just get into a routine, and it's hard to get out of that. So I just think it's a product of, first of all, who's around him. He's playing with Jonathan Huberdeau and Anthony Duclair, and both those players are fantastic players. Duclair, he's been bouncing around from team to team, but he still produced at a high level, 20 goals, if not more, pretty much every year. So, and obviously Jonathan Huberdeau is. We talked last Sunday about Sasha Barkov and how underrated he is, and Huberdeau's up there too. Talk about an underrated player that is able to elevate the players around him. So I think it's too early to really solidify that Sam Bennett will be a very successful long-term player for Florida, but at the same time, you give him props for what he's doing. He's averaging 18 minutes on ice, just over. And Kev, I believe he has 13 points.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was going by memory. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all good. All good. If there's anything that I know and I need to be, is 100% correct. Okay.
I'm at a solid 99.99. Yeah.
Flames fans, be happy for him. He's thriving down there. You want to see him do well. It's really too bad it didn't work out here in Calgary, especially obviously with his high draft pick, that he was the highest draft pick in Flames history. But be happy for his success. Yes, it's very unfortunate it's not with the team that we all cheer for. But it is too early to tell whether or not he will be able to sustain that long term.
Chris, Sam, or Sean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think Chris is trying to say something.
Yes, I was trying to. Realize I was on mute halfway through that sentence. Devin kind of stole the point that I was going to make, just basically saying, like, we don't know how long he's going to be this hot down in Florida, but when you're playing with Huberdeau, like, that's going to happen. He's currently underrated, just like Devin said, and like we discussed last week about Barkov. Like, yeah, I honestly think the change of scenery has definitely helped him out, and we'll see whether he can sustain this.
Yeah, there's definitely the pressure's off of him now because he's down in Florida, because he's no longer trying to live up to the high draft pick status that he had here in Calgary. And the fact that he's playing with Jonathan Huberdeau and Anthony Duclair in a position I think he's been wanting to play for a while at center is doing wonders for him. Now he has always been a streaky player. He's had streaks like this before, but I think that there's definitely something a little bit more here, and it was inevitable once Sam Bennett got traded like he requested and got to another place. I think it was inevitable for him to blossom a little bit more than he was in Calgary, and he did not have the last couple seasons were not great here in Calgary for him, and only 12 points last season, and then only 12 points in 38 games this season. But he still has the great determination and some skill to make it work in the right situation. So, and it's not like the Flames gave him away.
Nope. They've
got a second round pick and a really good prospect who was a second round pick last year in return for him. So it's not like they were left empty handed and watching him flourish elsewhere without getting a decent amount back.
Yeah, well, certainly, yeah. I think we'll see. And I mean, I'm already seeing a lot of the Flames Twitter going after who they should pick and the draft is. We'll get into that. Devin, we're going to, and Chris, we're going to be doing a mock draft, just so you know, so you be prepared. You're all excited over there.
I love drafts.
I'm not sure I'll be as prepared as Devin, but I'll be as prepared as I can be.
Yeah. Just quickly, do we want to do the U18s now? I'll just quickly touch on this, and then I want to. Well, we'll be getting Clay in here in a few minutes, but I just want to touch quickly on the U18s very quickly. Quarterfinals begin tomorrow, Monday. Russia, Belarus. Matvey Michkov is going into Alex Ovechkin territory. He's got 9 goals now. The record is 14, which for underage. The guy is a 2023 draft pick. He's in the Connor Bedard class, and he's just explosive, unbelievable. That Russian team is full of skill. So at least if you get a chance to watch them, very good. And Belarus have some skill as well. Danila Klinovich is a guy to watch as well. Then you got Canada playing the Czechs at 1 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Mountain. Then you have you will have the Finns playing. Let me think this through. Finns playing the Swiss shortly after that. That will be Finland finished first in Pool B. Pool B was a hell of a tournament. And then you have the main event: Sweden versus the U.S. Sweden has been the biggest disappointment in this tournament. They got the crap kicked out of them by Canada, 12-1. And so that was huge. They beat Belarus 5-1, but it didn't look great. They had trouble with the Swiss. The U.S. blew a huge lead against Russia, but they came back late against the Finns and put it to overtime. And the U.S. usually dominates this. So that will be a really good matchup. So if you have some time tomorrow, watch some of these U18s, especially if for Canada, Shane Wright is everything that everybody has said. He's going to be the first pick in 2022. And there's a lot of really talented players there. And there's a lot of talented players that did not make this tournament as well. So it is something worth watching, and it's a great event. So I did want to make sure that I got that in. Watch that tournament. I don't know if you guys have or not. So
I personally haven't been, but I've been catching highlights on Twitter, but I will make a point to watch a little bit more.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't either. I don't have a cable package, so I've not been able to watch anything on TSN, unfortunately. But I've, living it through you, Kev, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, there we go. Anything else we want to discuss?
There's the IIHF has rescheduled the Women's Worlds to being in August, I believe, and it's going to be held in Canada. They don't exactly know where, but Renee Fassel did sort of hint that it's going to be in Alberta somewhere, whether it's Edmonton or Calgary.
That's going over very well in Alberta, I imagine, right now. But
with our current numbers, yeah.
And right now that we've got the curling bubble going on, and they're dealing with some positive tests with the broadcast teams today. So it's I don't know. We'll see. But I'm glad that they're gonna find a way to get the Women's Worlds off at some point this year.
Yeah.
I just want to, first of all, there's a couple things on my plate that I want to talk about. Congratulations to Ryan Miller on a hell of a season here. Season, I want to say career. He's hanging him up at the end of the year, and very, very classy of the Kings players last night to stop out and give him a hug can't congratulate him on that on a great career. So congratulations to Ryan Miller.
Well, hello there, and we have the one and only, the man of the thumb, Clay, Canucks Clay. How's it going?
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. Nice to see you, Kevin, Sean, Devin, and Chris. Sean and Devin, you guys got more hair on your chin than I think I have on the top of my head, man. It's impressive. I'm doing great.
That's where our hair is.
I think that's enough said. Chris, nice to see you. Chris has always looked out for me for the past 8 to 10 years on Twitter. And Kevin and all you guys, you're doing such great work. And we shared screen time on that story, I think, right? That was pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were the key focus, and we just stole 2 seconds of it. But we wanted to rob our time because we needed to. But yeah, how did that all happen?
Yeah. Gary from CTV, he wanted to do a story on Canucks fandom. And I invited him to my workplace because there are nice open spaces that we can safely record. Did a 30 to 45 minute interview. I knew they were going to chop it down to 2 minutes, all good. But then right at the end, he made me put on my jersey and he simply said, "Hey, Clay, can you smile for the camera and hold it?" So I said, "Sure." And then after a couple seconds, I said, "Hey, can I give my trademark thumbs up?" And he said, "Sure." And he goes, "Just do it slowly." I said, "Okay." So it was like this. So I didn't know what he was going to do with it. And then sure enough, he puts it on in his story. And when I've told the story, but it's so worth telling. When my family watched it with me, they're like, "Oh, Dad, what a dork! You look like such a goofball. How embarrassing." I was like, "Shut up! I can't hear." Right, so I rewatched it over the PVR, and yeah, it was awkward, but I loved it, and I just had a feeling that something was going to come of it. I didn't anticipate the magnitude, but sure enough, as soon as people got wind of it, I even posted it as well. Mr. Booth, Sat Shaw, Chris Faber. And other guys, Thomas Drance especially. So a lot of those guys just fooled around with it, posted it. And then that night I went to bed and Clay was trending on Twitter. Now, I don't know if it's just me. I like to think it's just me, but who knows? And then the next morning, Utica comments, Hockey Night Canada, and then the Canucks reshared it. And since then, brothers, it's actually a searchable meme in a GIF in Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp. So thank you for allowing me those 2 minutes to just brag and show off. And I'll try and be humble for the rest of our time here, but no promises.
I want to say thank you right away, though, because I've already used it multiple times.
As you should, Chris, as you should.
I just think it should be now the Canuck fans' greeting.
Yeah, well, and the Canucks, you guys know this. They're 0-3 since that gift came out, so not the best timing.
Yeah.
But, without saying this is more than it actually is, I actually have a feeling this thing's going to stick. And I could see people using it for a little bit, and I certainly won't complain.
No, what I appreciate about you is your positivity. This has been a crap year, and this is not only because of the results, but I think overall this has been rough. Like, yeah. I don't recall. Wyatt Arndt posted on Twitter a couple of days ago. Yesterday, he posted that this was the worst year for the Canucks that he can ever remember covering, with COVID. With now the news with Jake Virtanen, which we haven't even touched on yet. How have you been handling this?
Yeah, so much to unpack there, but I do watch you guys and listen to your guys' stuff, and I think you guys have a really good sense of you're not afraid to call things out, but you're not afraid to affirm things as well. And I think that's really important. I think it's very easy for anyone to be overly negative, overly critical in a year such as this, but you're right. Our performance in the bubble didn't help. It helped in that it was great for our players and our confidence. It didn't help in that I think it set up some expectations for this team that maybe were unrealistic. It set up maybe the way that Jim Benning was or wasn't active in the offseason. So I think that's another thing. But you're right. The COVID thing, the Jake Virtanen thing, and just the overall unrest that people have when it comes to the management group. I don't think anyone blames the players. I think most people don't even blame Travis Green. You can only coach who you got, right? There's a lot of fault or a lot of pointing fingers at management and ownership. For me, I try and take the long game here. I really do. I've been a season ticket holder for 10 years. That's how I met Chris actually at the arena. And I know that there's really good times, 2011. There's really bad times, 2011. And there's a whole bunch in the middle. And I think for me, my outlook on life overall just keeps me trending positively and recognizing as much as time, energy, and money that we all put into this team, podcast, content creation, jerseys, games, it's still at the end of the day, a game. It's a sport that we choose to put our money, energy, time into. And that way I'm never going to go crazy about this team, good or bad. Of course I want them to do well, but I think I have at least a modicum of perspective that's really important. Or maybe I'm just really old. I'm pretty sure I'm older than all you guys. So maybe that's the thing too.
Sean, I think that there's definitely a little bit of that, and going through the ups and downs of previous seasons has definitely helped me through this, and trying to look for positives. Yeah. Because it's so easy to be negative, especially during the past 12, 14 months.
Yeah.
It's been really tough to avoid getting super negative. So that's how I've been, especially coming back from the COVID break that the Canucks had. I was like, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm going to be happy that I'm watching Canucks hockey. I'm going to be happy that I'll be able to watch players I really enjoy watching play, and I'm going to try and find the positives, because as amazing those 2 wins versus the Leafs were right out of the break, you knew that at some point they were either going to have some issue, like some troubles and lose a few games, or just the more likely, and what we're kind of seeing here is just they just don't have the wheels to keep up with these teams that have been playing for this whole time. So you gotta finding ways to look at the positives, finding ways to find the things to celebrate, whether it's Cole Lynn's playing and not just being a fourth line guy, like getting 17 minutes in his first NHL game is fantastic. He hasn't produced any points, but he's looked solid enough that you want to see more. Enjoy watching Niels Höglander every time he's on the ice and creating havoc out there, and then just looking forward to seeing what this team could do next year. We talked about this earlier on before you showed up about how if things go back to the quote unquote normal divisions, there's definitely 2 playoff spots that are wide open in the Pacific next year. So if this is just a year where everything's gone wrong, and you still have young players like Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Niels Höglander, you got Podkolzin coming over. We're going to still see probably Jack Rathbone play a game this year. Hopefully Jonah Gadjevich as well, who was absolutely ripping it up in the AHL. Like there's reasons to still be excited about it, despite the fact that it feels like everything's gone wrong.
I presume you're talking about Vegas and Edmonton being the 2 teams that will likely make the playoffs, correct? Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. One thing, and I'll let you guys jump into. I don't mean to monopolize, but I know what guests usually do. You can mask the absence of Pettersson for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and it was pretty crazy that we had a winning record without him. But I think you can see all these games where we're scoring 1 goal, going 0-4 on the power play. You really miss him right now. You miss a guy like Tyler Mudd, a spark plug in our bottom 6, and those 2 guys very noticeable in their absence last night. And it's just. Yeah, it just speaks to the crazy year that it has been, for sure.
Yeah, if you're Pettersson, I mean, for the most part, you just got to throw the season away. This has been brutal, like for sure. Yeah. Unfortunately, just toss it in the, but they completely miss him. Quinn Hughes, I mean, you had the adjustment of COVID, you have the adjustment of not having Tanev, you have the adjustment of just of everything. Yeah, that I think this year has been. I think I know you will get better. We'll see better for Quinn Hughes as well. But the kids are coming. There are kids coming. So I think, I do think that there's an open spot. I mean, I guess it comes down to what management ultimately does. That's and I mean, the great debate if Jim Benning is running the team, but I guess the even bigger question is if Travis Green is back. Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
And really, I guess the bigger question is, does Travis Green want to be back?
Well, the report is from Dollywall that there is a contract sitting in front of him. It's just whether he signs it or not. So we'll find out, I guess, in the next coming couple of weeks, maybe a month. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to wonder if he feels disrespected a little bit, or maybe he understands that this is the way the world is this year. But you know how we heard these stories about not being able to sign Toffoli, Tanev, Markstrom. I mean, we can argue whether or not these were good moves or not, but we heard a lot about this. That they ran out of time. You know, that joke, and maybe the players felt slightly disrespected. You can't help but think if Travis Green feels that way, or local guy. Although I understand that his family might be living in the States. I don't know if you guys know that for sure. So I don't know. I don't know if he feels disrespected and or he's willing to put all this behind him, knowing it's a crazy year and that he still has a lot that he wants to do with this team. But yes, Chris, I heard that as well. And depending on who you listen to or who you read, some people are saying that's good progress. Others are saying that they're completely the gap's really big, but who knows? I know it's not a Nikita Trampkin gap, but we'll see how big of a gap it is indeed.
Yeah. We do have a question from the audience here. James asked, just for fun, put on your GM betting hat for a second. Tell me who would pick in the draft of the D class of Luke Hughes, Brent Clark, Simon Edvinsson, Corson Kuhlmans, and why.
He's asking you guys, right? Because I don't know. I must say, when it comes to prospects, I only know about them when the Canucks draft one of them. I'm actually not the best prospects person. I'll throw to you guys. I'll quickly say, depending on where we end up with Hughes, there's always the tantalizing prospect of putting them together, and maybe it makes them both stay here longer. I think that's a really important factor to consider. I have heard of Clark, seen a bit of him, but I don't know about the other guys. So I will throw to you guys. But of course, Hughes and Hughes would be neat, and I know a bit about Clark, but I don't know anything about the other two. How about you guys?
I know even less. So I'm going to leave it to the Holmes Smith brothers above me here to discuss prospects.
Sweet.
Well, don't. We got Kevin, who's
Sure, yes.
covering
Kevin
the
as well.
under 18s for the Dub Networks as well. So, my personal out of all those ones, I really like the idea of Brant Clark. He's a right shot defenseman who has all the tools to be a top pair defenseman. But then don't forget about Owen Power as well.
Yes,
he's another defenseman in this draft that has the ability to be there. But for me, the idea of being able to have Brant Clark on the right side with the Canucks going forwards, I think is something that I think they should really look for going forwards.
Yeah, Clay said what I was going to say. I love Lee Hughes. I think that'd be a fantastic fit for the brothers to play together. It's for brothers to play together in the NHL, especially at a young age, and where the peak is of the average NHLer right now. It's when they're younger, and so what more fun could you have with that? And I love that storyline.
Just for me, as far as Brant Clark goes, very raw. I would argue Olin Zellinger has been better so far in this tournament than Brant Clark. Simon Edvinsson is a massive man. Once he figures out what he does, that he's that massive, he's going to be something to watch. Corson Kuhlmans, though, don't sleep on him. He's going to Wisconsin next year. They've used him in the U18s. They've used him on the left side on the power play. He's got some versatility to him. He's not Cale Makar, because played on the same team, the Berks Bandits, but he's going to be a star as well. I think it really comes down to where you end up picking. I think you're not necessarily going to go wrong. In terms of forwards, though, if one guy I would, if you're a Canucks fan, one guy you got to also hope is Logan Stankoven as well as a guy you hope for forwards that I think the Canucks should look at as well. But Owen Power seems to be the consensus number one pick so far, and he's not in the tournament. But I don't think you're going wrong either. With any of these five, you're not going to go wrong.
And Sean, to your point about Power, yes, of course. I think maybe James didn't mention Power in his question because I think there's a presumption that we do not get number one or number two or number one, and maybe we wind up somewhere in the 3 to 8 range. Maybe that's why. But yeah, Kev, what kind of game does Brant Clark play?
He's very offensive. Been used on the power play. There's a lot of people that do think he should be the number one pick. He's played with Shane Wright and Brendan Othman for years together. So he's part of that connection. He is a great talent. But I find him to be very raw. I still think that I'm not a super scout, but I think there's some things that I think that can be improved. But Owen Zellinger from the Everett Silvertips, that's a guy, a second, right now looks like a second round pick. That's a guy, be an interesting guy as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I really can't wait for the draft at this point because I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see where everyone goes more than most drafts because I'm seeing lists where you've got Owen Power up at the top, but you also have lists where he's in the 5 to 10 range.
Wow.
And it's all over the place. So we're gonna have all the internet scouts and the amateur like the fan scouts that are gonna go absolutely crazy when someone that they had probably in the 15 to 20 range goes in the top 10.
Right. And vice versa. Right. Why is my guy dropping? Yeah.
Yeah, if there's going to be a year for discrepancies at the draft, this is definitely going to be it.
And that's the thing, Chris, because people have been asking, well, what do you think the Canucks are going to do when it comes to free agents? And I don't think they're going to have a lot of money, firstly. And B, I think this is the year, exactly, Chris. I think you want to accumulate as much draft capital as you can, because your one man's treasure, or whatever the saying is, basically you could value a bunch of guys that, like, what's the difference this year between a third and fourth rounder or a second and third rounder? It's not, I'd say, as magnified as other years. So I'd say, why not try and accumulate draft capital, knowing that next year might be another write-off year, but 2, 3, 4. It sounds so weird saying this because we were saying this 2, 3, 4 years ago, but maybe that's what you need to look towards, something to consider at least.
Yeah, and then you have the expansion draft, which I think is going to be very interesting. There's the obvious of who you're going to protect, but is there someone that you hope that they protect that is kind of flying under the radar?
Yeah, just to clarify, because I was talking about this on my own live stream, Cole Lind does need to be protected. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, the 7 forwards are the big 4, of course: Pettersson, Besser, Horvat, and Miller. And then I think you go Pearson, because I believe there's a handshake agreement. And then for me, it is Linden Mott. Before this Virtanen thing happened, I always knew we'd lose one of, before he got traded, Gaudette, Virtanen, or McEwen. I knew it was one of those 3 guys. I still think it's going to be one of those 3 guys. But those would be the 7. And then, of course, on the back end, you go Ulevi, Schmidt, Myers, because you don't have to protect Hughes, and then Demko. That's to me what it is. But so Cole, out of all those guys, Kev, to answer your question, Cole Lind, maybe because we didn't know a lot about him, but 17 minutes, another 15 yesterday. Hasn't been amazing, but has certainly not looked out of place. And he's not getting the 8, 9, 10 minute treatment like for Boyd, VC, and Highmore and those guys.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Do you think, I guess the question from the Seattle perspective, who are we thinking Seattle would take at this early point? I mean, I think everyone hope is Holtby, I think, in some way, shape, or form, but is that realistic at this point?
Yeah, Holtby has certainly played his way back into the conversation, but I still think there's a lot of younger, cheaper better goalies that Seattle will have a chance to pick. My gut feeling is they might take a flyer on McEwen and bring him in as depth on your 4th line, and maybe some would argue Gaudette will flourish or at least do better in Chicago. Maybe McEwen needs a change of scenery as well. I noticed him last night, actually, you guys, in last night's game. He was out there playing hard with the 2 ex-Leafs, but I don't know. Maybe it's McEwen. We don't know anything about Bowie, and the other guys are UFA. So why take a pick on those guys, right?
Right.
Yeah, the Canucks need to find a way to protect to figure out their protection lists so that it makes it more likely that they get a significant salary off the books.
Yeah,
but I do think that someone like a McEwen will be very intriguing for Seattle to do because of again, younger. He can be a 4th line player. Can he be more? And you're not necessarily taking on extra cap, even though you do need to draft a certain amount of cap when they make those moves. So it's I'm hoping that the Canucks are able to find a way to set things up so that they lose, say, like a Holtby or someone like that.
Bigo, Rousseau are the other 2 big ones. One year.
But both of them are injured, right? So I don't know how interested Seattle would be in them now. So it's going to be tough. I think we have to expect to lose someone like a McEwen going into this. But in best case scenario is they Seattle picks up someone with a decent amount of salary that can help the Canucks get out from being so cap strapped.
Yeah,
I think that's a little hopeful dreaming there, though, for you, Sean, because let's be honest, a geographical rival, they're not going to take it easy on the Canucks. If anything, they're going to give it to us hard.
Well, yeah, but they also still have to like try and build their team. And how do you and right now, I think the most realistic option to take Cap off is Holtby. And
yeah,
if you want to have a veteran goaltender plus your younger goaltenders to build things up, and you look how well Fleury has played for Vegas throughout the years since they drafted him. Like it makes sense in that aspect for me. Beagle and Roussel don't make any sense for Seattle for me. You don't know what's going to happen with Virtanen going forwards. But I think like the only realistic option right now is Holtby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just saying, don't expect any favors.
Well, no, you can't expect favors. Like you'll have to pay the Canucks may have to pay to get to try and make that work as well.
Although, did they alter some of those rules so that way you can't pull a what's the Vegas's GM's name? McPhee. You can't pull a McPhee. I don't
think they did, but I don't think we're going to see nearly as many of those side deals.
Yeah,
we aren't going to see. We aren't going to see. Yeah, we aren't going to see Florida hand Seattle a first line like they did with Vegas. You aren't going to see Anaheim hand Seattle a top pair defenseman in Shea Theodore. You aren't going to. I don't think you're going to see much of that this year.
No, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the general managers have overall learned from the Vegas Golden Knight experience expansion wise. I don't expect that this team is going to be Vegas, but I also don't think that they're going to be terrible either. So I still think there can be some side deals. Let me throw a name at here that, I mean, he's lived here forever. Is Alex Edler an option to go to Seattle?
I mean, he's a UFA, so if they draft him, they're going to have to make sure that they sign him.
Right. But even if he doesn't sign with Vancouver, is that a guy that Seattle would consider a veteran defenseman?
If they go that way, I think it would be Edler over a guy like Gio, which Devin has thrown out as a possibility. So, I think that would be more likely, but I'm still not thinking that they're likely to go for Edler. Sorry, Sean.
Or Edler wanting to go there. Because I just get this vibe from Edler that he wants to retire a Canuck. So if the Canucks don't sign him, I think he retires.
I agree with that. I've been saying that as well. I just sense he loves it here. His family loves it here. Granted, Seattle would be the closest geographically you can get to, but I don't know. His drop off in his game, you guys, has been so bad and so quick. It's sad to see, but unless they work out some sweetheart deal, and the NHLPA doesn't want him to take a $1.5 or $2 million deal coming off a $6 million deal. So I agree with you, Sean. If I had to lay money down now, I think Edler retires after the season.
Especially if he gets into another fight, he can't take that.
Yeah, that was rough, Devin. That was rough.
Let's get into that. We've been waiting. I was waiting for the transition here. Let's start with the Leaf fan. What were your thoughts on this whole Simmons Edler situation?
I mean, I really don't mind it. I think that look, there's two sides to it. There's the side that the NHL handing out that suspension is enough of a penalty for Edler, and he doesn't have to answer to anything. But there's also the player's side. I see it from the player's side personally. If one of my players was hit like that, and yes, Edler isn't a dirty player. He has done a knee in the past of Eric Stahl in the World Championships, and that there's some correlation there. But overall, I truly believe he's not a dirty player. He doesn't have that track record. But once again, if one of my teammates got hit like that, I would want retribution on that, or I'd want somebody to rectify that through a fight. And that's just the hockey culture. Fighting has been obviously in the game forever. And one of the reasons why I enjoy the fights that are like that, and not like that, but just fighting in general. If they take fighting out of it, then you have to rely on the NHL to bring justice towards that player, and especially since Zach Hyman's still out, and it might not just be from that knee, because he did have reconstruction surgery on that exact knee that Edler did hit, which is very unfortunate. But it just puts too much. I'd rather the players figure it out themselves, and then they can get on with it. And it's not like Edler didn't drop the gloves. He dropped the gloves. He's a willing combatant. If he didn't drop the gloves, then it's a bit of a different story.
Yeah,
Basically, he didn't pull a Kachuk.
For me, I did not. For me, like there was all talk about the quote unquote code that let's be honest, it does not exist. The code is whatever each person wants it to be. But for me, if you want that, then pick someone else to go after Edler, not Wayne Simmons. The mismatch, you don't, the part of what was the code before it got messed around and there actually really isn't much, was that you didn't fight out for this type of stuff. You wouldn't fight out of your weight class. So either Wayne Simmons would have to fight like Zach McEwen, or you'd have to find someone else who was not necessarily a heavyweight to go after Alex Edler. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, because when you listen to there's some media and then some fans are saying, well, Simmons was just doing that, and you could tell he was taking it easy on him. Okay, why? Because he knew he was doing something that wasn't necessarily right. I think it's I think you need to find there was better ways to handle it than to have a heavyweight fighter in Wayne Simmons go after someone who has never fought in the NHL before.
Yeah,
Chris,
I don't have much to add on top of that.
Yeah, I'm all over the place with this one. But to me, I actually agree with a lot of what Devin said. And Sean, I do see what you were saying too about, and we're talking about, I guess, figurative weight class, not literal, because I think Edler actually weighs more. Yeah, but I hear what you're saying. 80 fights versus 0. I get that. For me, guys, the fact that Edler nor Travis Green nor any Canucks players chirped about it or complained about it, and really, it was done. 2 minutes in the game, it was done. Yeah, Edler got some stitches, but ultimately, it was done, and no one was running him for the rest of the game. Kind of speaks to what both you guys were talking about code or no code, or trying to police it themselves. So I actually was fine with it. I didn't get too much into what the media or what the fans were going back and forth. Vancouver, Toronto will always be like that. So I was fine with it, given that the team didn't seem to complain, and it didn't fester for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the matchup, and I guess one of the things that I think is very fortunate is Edler didn't get hurt, so that's good. I think I was a little, and maybe this is a combination of a play that happened a little bit in Ottawa, that I think maybe this bothered me more than what happened with Edler. So Shane Pinto ran over, I want to say it was Matthew Highmore. Was it Highmore? It was it was a clear between the numbers bad hit. And nobody did anything at that and during that game. And and maybe I took that bothersome that nobody jumped in and stepped in to say anything in Pinto in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. The fact that no one did anything for Edler there, that's what concerned me a little bit. I think as a veteran, I would have liked to have seen someone stand in for Edler, as a guy that has never fought before, a guy that has played with this team for a really long time.
Yeah.
But if the players were fine with it, it seems like there was an understanding. I think probably part of this is that. But to be honest with you, I'm more concerned that nobody went after Shane Pinto in the Ottawa game, and that wasn't really talked about a lot. But that was not a good hit, and I would have liked to have seen someone step in at that situation.
Where's Ryan Miller when you need him?
Yeah, yeah, he stepped in on Troy Thatcher.
Yeah, the Canucks. A couple of things. You think of the Mike Matheson on Pettersson in his rookie season. So there's been moments where I think many fans would wish the Canucks would show more of that. What you're talking about, Kevin, is that whole camaraderie, sticking up for one another. I get the fact you don't want to do something stupid and take a penalty, especially if you're in a playoff race or something like that. And there are a lot of people that think the Canucks aren't tough enough. I think we'd all agree you don't necessarily need tough players. You like a goon. There's no, you can't afford as a guy who only skates 5 minutes. You have to have team toughness though. And do you say that Miller and Pettersson and Horvat are tough? They're gritty, but are they tough? I'm not so sure. So I do have time for that argument, Kevin, that you would like to see a bit more of a pushback, even if it's just letting Pinto know, yeah, I don't care. You're obviously young in this league. You got to know that you don't do that to anyone of our players. That's a fair point.
Well, even in Ottawa, Clark MacArthur got hit by an ex-Flame. Kevin can remind me who that is. Anyways, it was an ex-Flame on a PTO, and Chris Neal stepped in and tuned him up because it was just one of those things. So I don't think it really matters how old you are. You need to realize that you've been playing hockey your entire life. You know what a dangerous hit is, and yeah, you get caught up in how fast the game is up here in the NHL. But at the same time, you gotta, what you did. So you gotta have that. And right now, the Leafs have that finally within Wayne Simmons. That's why they brought him in. I don't see anyone else really stepping up to fight Edler. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, the only other person I could see do that is Zach Hyman, and he's not it.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that I hope that the Canucks get back, I think go back to 2011 is they wore that black hat so well. They were the villains. They were the guys that were, they pissed they pissed the rest of Canada off with the way that they played. And I think that's partly one of the things that I think that they're missing a little bit. And I hope that's one of the things that they'll have to address. It's great to have veteran leadership. I'm not just counting that. I'm not just counting what a Beagle and Roussel and all that, way overpaid. But I think that one of the things that they're missing is that, that nasty sandpaper, you're not going to mess with us. Type of thing.
Well, that's part of why the bottom six has been so frustrating for many fans, is that there really isn't that. You've got Tyler Mott who runs who forechecks like a demon and is able to make it work and pot in goals and he's a great penalty killer. But outside of that, they don't necessarily have someone who you think that can be that little bit like that. Jace Hallerla could. But you don't. They do need a little more edge. They do need a little more, to quote Jason Bruff, Wolfpack per 60. I think they had it last year, and they had it to start this season. But I think part of just the mental strain of this season and what they've just gone through. I think they are. I think there's a little bit of them where they're just resigned to the fact that they're just trying to make the best of this, and they're not getting too emotionally invested in all this right now. And I don't know if you can criticize them for that or not, but I think for me, that looks like what's happened is that they know that this is their job and they have to play the games for the rest of the season until the NHL says no more. And they're just going through it at this point because they know that they're going to try and improve themselves, but they know that until next season, right now they're in a bit of limbo in terms of how to act and how to play.
And it was Patrick Seeloff that was fought by Chris Neal.
Right. Thank you. I'm sorry. I could not remember for the life of me. Sorry. Another question from James. Put it on your hood chat. What would you with the Canucks power play going forward, formation, personnel? I don't think the top six you need to do a lot there. I mean, maybe you would want a better right shot point man or another right shot on your number one power play. Not that Besser's not the answer, but you want maybe one more there. And probably you need like with the issues with the bottom six, you need to definitely need to find some answers there. Adam Gaudette was not going to be it here in Vancouver, unfortunately. And maybe, to me, certainly some more right shot offensive firepower from the defense would help as well. That's what I would be looking at.
I don't mind the personnel on both power play units for what they have to use. Hopefully Cole Lind gets some power play time going forwards. But I want to see them work the puck down low more. There's way too much cycling high in the zone, and they just get caught, and next the puck's down the ice, or they're giving up an odd man rush. And it's very frustrating. I want to see them work the puck down low instead of that umbrella setup that they have.
I agree with you, Sean. Even when Pettersson was healthy, Pettersson's on the right. Remember, it was Miller on the left. And you're right, Sean. Miller and Hughes in particular, they would always do this thing where they would kind of circle with each other, do-side-do, like a square dance. And then they would kind of get Miller trying to get skating downhill, which is good, at least creates. But it was so predictable, just those two. Then maybe get it over to PD on the right for a one-timer. And then, oh, by the way, Brock and Bo just kind of stand there and go for a rebound in the one time in the 2 minutes that we do get a shot off. Now with PD injured, they switch things around and they have Miller on that side, Besser on the left. But you're exact same thing. You're exactly right. They just go along the top three and then they don't get it down. When they went to the bumper, Pearson's good, right? In Pettersson's absence, get pucks to the net and bang home a rebound. And that's why the second power play unit, not this year, but last year was good. They were direct. They would get in the zone and they would move the puck towards the net. And I just think the first power play unit is way too predictable. You do one pre-scout on them, you watch one game, and you know what they're going to do. Hughes is going to control it, pass back and forth with Miller, try and set something up, and you don't even have to worry about the bumper or the net front right now. I completely agree with you, Sean.
And yeah, I have absolutely nothing else to add because Sean and Clay basically said everything that I was going to say.
So I'll let you go first next time, Chris.
All good.
Well, I'll start with Chris here. Let me throw us another name out here. Would you consider bringing in Tyson Barrie? Is he a guy that you would like to see the Canucks take a shot at next year?
To be honest, I don't know too much about Barry's game other than the fact that he's primarily an offensive defenseman. Is it worth a shot if we can get him on a cheap contract? Sure, maybe, but I really am not too knowledgeable on his game to really have a strong opinion.
He's just a number one power play guy. He's not very good 5-on-5 in his defensive zone. Trust me, watching him in Toronto. He did not do well. He's done decently well this year, but I think that's just the product of McDavid and Draisaitl. And you already have Quinn Hughes on your back end there doing his thing on the number one power play. So I don't think it's beneficial for the Canucks to go after him. And even if you did, you'd just be, pigeonhole him into the second power play unit when that's not what he wants, and I don't see them going after him, and I don't see Barrie signing within the realm of the Canucks.
Yeah, between Hughes and Schmidt, I really don't see a point in bringing in basically another version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's going to get a deal that the Canucks can't afford anyways. His point production this year is good enough to get someone to resign, like whether the Oilers bring him back or someone else signs him to a 2 or 3 year deal. But I think he's gonna be out of the Canucks price range anyways.
Yeah, especially if he's making $375. He was making more than that actually before this year. Would you guys be open to bringing Hamonic back for 1 to 1.5 if he took it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's been serviceable.
Without a doubt. I don't think we've seen the best of Travis Hamonic this year. I think you look at his season. He comes in, he has to quarantine. He doesn't even get the little mini training camp that the Canucks had. Didn't have his feet under him to start. Then he got injured. Then he goes through all the COVID stuff as well. I think if he wants to come back, and he can come back at a decent price for 1 year, or even 2, I think you have to look at it because you need someone like him to play with Quinn Hughes. Be a bit of a safety blanket for him when he's trying to do too much, because that's the biggest thing with that Quinn Hughes has struggled with this year is he's been trying to do too much when he gets the puck, and he needs to simplify his game.
Yeah, that March stretch, they're really good together in March, and when no surprise that Hughes' game got better as Hamnick set it down. Exactly. Sorry, guys, someone's gonna say.
No, you're good, man. The whole Hamnick thing, he's only going to be in Western Canada, so he's pigeonholed himself to be either a Canuck, a Flame, which he's already been, and he won't come back, a Oiler or a Jet, and. I mean, the Jets might take a run at him just because of how their depth on the back end there isn't the best. So I'd see it's a very good possibility that they can come to a mutual agreement, especially if he likes the city, if he likes his teammates. I'd see a very good possibility.
And he's a warrior. Like, he really is one of those guys that I think if he had a full season, full training camp in Vancouver, the Canuck Nation would love him. He's a warrior, plays with no teeth. He's a hockey player. If that makes any sense when I say that, like he's a guy you want to bring back. My concern is I think Winnipeg is going to overpay for him. That would be the one thing that I would be super concerned about, but I'd be open for 2 years for him. Yep. What do we think? What have we thought of Nate Schmidt?
Again, someone I don't think we've seen the best of.
Yeah.
He's had flashes of being good, but he's also had flashes of inconsistency as well. So give him more time and let him actually have I realize this is probably overused, but a sense of normalcy and see how he plays.
Well, and he's one of the guys that in the dressing room that he's gel. He's the glue that keeps everybody together. So Chris is right. Well, having some sort of normalcy within an NHL season and with even just outside in the social aspect, he's a guy who creates all these different hangout options and making sure that everybody is all good, and that goes a long way on the ice when you have that camaraderie off the ice.
Yeah, when we picked him up, you guys, last summer, and I think we were so excited that A, we only gave up a third rounder for him, and B, it was actually someone coming here as opposed to seeing the mass exodus of players leaving. But yeah, he had a slow start. Well, the whole team did, but he had a really slow start. And I was actually surprised at how much he was turning the puck over and how easy it was to take the puck from him. Could be a systems thing, could be a chemistry thing. I think the whole team, he was a lot better in March, and once in a while he'll still do something a little silly, but I have high hopes for him, and I hope so. We have him for 4 more years at $6 million. So,
yeah.
Dev, you brought up a great point in terms of the social aspect, and I think we can all look at Nate Schmidt and go, I think he's an extrovert. I think in terms of how this season is set up and with the safety protocols and everything, I think that really did not put him in the best mindset. And I think that probably hurt him as well. But I do think going forwards with next season, I think we're going to see bounce back seasons from a lot of players on the Canucks, and Nate Schmidt will be one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Ole Levy? And I guess we've got the Yolevis, we've got Rathbones, we've got Chatfields. But I do put Yolevi. I'm putting Yolevi a little bit up there. I think he's made. If I could give an award for most improved Canuck, I might give it to Ole Yolevi. I think he's made some strides. I think he is. I think now I would put him as a 5 or 6 National Hockey League defenseman on a semi-regular basis. It's like Sam Bennett, which we talked about before. He's never going to live down that he was picked ahead of Matthew Tkachuk, but I think he's going to carve his path. And with defense, it takes a long time. But I think he's a National Hockey League defenseman. I really do.
Yeah, I think he has taken the steps and shown everyone what he can be, which is a solid defenseman who can move the puck, because every game he plays, you notice one or two like absolutely brilliant passes that he makes, and I think with more confidence you'll see that more and more. They need him to step up, or they need to see. They also need to see what they have in Jack Rathbone, and everyone's very excited about what he can bring. He looks good in the very short tenure he had in Utica, and I think that it's time to see what they have there.
I like you, Levy. I really do, and I think we know what he's. Sean, you're right. He can bomb the puck passes tape to tape from his either across ice or down the boards. He doesn't get the puck over a lot. Now, granted, we know he's not the fastest guy. You could probably beat him wide a little bit, but so he fits in well in our team. Overall, I think he does really well with his strengths. I could see him peak out as a top four, not a top pairing, but I could see him peak as a second pairing. But even if it's second, third pairing, that's a solid defenseman. You take the fact away that we picked him fifth overall, and you just say, no, if we get a good 10 or 12 years out of this guy or whatever, I think that's a good pick. And I would love to see 3 years down the road, or even 2 years down the road, a left side of Hughes, Rathbone, and Juolevi. Sure, that's very inexperienced, but that kind of thing excites me. So I do have hopes for Juolevi for sure. And he seems like he doesn't get lost in the moment. I think sometimes, him and Myers not the best pairing, right? That one goal where they kind of think the I think it was Mete just skate up right in between them, but he's young. But I like him.
First round picks usually, on average, 1 out of 3 first round picks make it to the NHL and make an impact. So if you do have them for a long time, then that's a win, no matter who was picked before him or after him. And the Canucks need that too. They need that young presence, and the small cap hit as well. So the fact that he hasn't really jumped onto the scene isn't a negative. I see it more as a positive going forward, because you can lock him up for a decent amount of time at a smaller cap hit, and he's still going to be a good defenseman.
Yeah, Juolevi will be needing a new contract after this season. And with going back to what we talked about, potentially Edler retiring after this season, if the Canucks are moving on from him. If the Canucks do end up moving on from Edler, they desperately need someone to step up and fill that role. Whether it's Juolevi, Chatfield, don't forget about Rafferty or Rathbone, because you're going to need to find someone to step up in there, because Edler, for all even though his game has fallen off, he still takes a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
and still you're going to have to fill that role, whether it's moving Schmidt back over to the left or hoping that Juolevi or Rathbone can step in and take 15 to 20 minutes a night.
2 more I want to ask about from my perspective. Thatcher Demko, we're assuming he's number 1. There's no questions about that. But I do wonder what happens with Mikey DiPietro next year. This is a guy that he's played. How many games has he played? I think he played his first game coming up here soon in over a year. Kind of curious where we're at with the overall goaltending. I mean, I'm assuming we're okay with Demko, but I think what happens with DiPietro, I think, is going to be interesting next year.
Well, he needs to play.
Yeah,
bottom line. Can't have another repeat of this year. And the fact that they sent him down to play in Utica for the end of the season is good, but he needs to play.
Yeah. Ideally, I think it would probably be best for him to spend a full season down with Utica or wherever it ends up, to just get his feet under him and actually get some solid development going. Because I don't think he's at the spot where he would realistically be a backup for Demko yet.
Yeah, he just needs to play, period, like you guys have said. You know who your number 1 is, so there's no need to rush him into a spot where he's not going to be successful. And, do the whole Detroit model, over-ripen down in the AHL. And, after Holtby's contract is done, then you can bring him up, and then he can be a bit of a tandem 1A 1B kind of thing, and Demko can help with his progression and make him a good number one after Demko is done, or you might even see a trade here because Demko's still young. He's still a young goaltender, and if you're looking to get some prospects back or some sort of a good trade to get a solid defenseman or help solidify that top six, then he's a good trade bait, or even DiPietro being one of them.
Yeah, you guys, aside from Luongo, Schneider, I actually think I like the way the Canucks have managed their goalies over the past decade, because you think it's gone Luongo, Schneider, Miller, Markstrom, Demko, right? And there's always a guy pushing from underneath, which you should have. I think I agree with you completely. I think DiPietro's at least one more year away. This year, unfortunately, was a lost year. So maybe he impresses people with his last 8 games here in Utica. But I do see, whether it's Holtby or if Holtby gets taken, you sign a guy for 1 year as a cheap, proven backup that you can put into a game, and at least you're not going to lose for sure. I mean that respectfully. With DiPietro, give him 1 more year, and you're exactly right. Once Holtby's gone, he's your backup, and then now you have a reason to build towards the next transition in 3 years from now or 4 years from now.
Yeah, and the one thing with DiPietro is the kid has just an amazing attitude. Yeah. An amazing attitude. He did an interview with Chris Faber, and the quotes that came out of it, and especially this one, basically laughing off everyone being worried because he knows everyone has, like, look at that. Everyone has a different path. He's taken this season. He doesn't think this season's a lost season. He got to work with Ian Clark all year. He got to be a part of the Canucks-ish. And he was able to use that to develop his game more. So I think it's, if you're not, like, I'm cheering so hard for Mikey DiPietro to make it and to have a great career in the NHL, just because of how good of an attitude he has towards this season and developing as a goalie, period.
Before we go on, Sean, I was so impressed there when you pulled up that graphic. Okay, Sean, Kevin, Devin, Chris, take me behind the curtain. Did you guys know you're going to talk about DiPietro, so you had that graphic ready, or did you just pull? Because that was pretty. I know this isn't doing anything for the people listening on audio, but for those of you watching on video live right now, I was just sitting here watching Sean talk, and then boom, this tweet comes up from Chris Faber. So tell me you had that prepared, or you just that quick, Sean? That was impressive.
When we started talking about DiPietro, I remembered reading those tweets last night, and I wanted to bring up one of them. So. It was a little bit spur of the moment, but I let everyone else talk a little bit so I could actually get the tweet out.
I've done I've done some spur of the moment stuff. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Which does remind me, though. I think Ian Clark. I'm not saying that you don't have, like, this has got to be, as much as it's been the Travis Green coaching not signing has been mind-boggling in a lot of ways, but they've got to find a way to get this Ian Clark situation settled in one way, shape, or form. This has to get done. And I would argue, maybe I'm in the island here, but if the one guy the Canucks cannot lose is Ian Clark.
I agree with you, Kev. I have him higher up on on the list of must-haves for the Canucks than Travis Green. I think you can replace a coach like Travis Green a little easier than someone who is as good a goalie coach in terms of not only developing goaltenders and working with them, but also doing pre-scouts for the players and on opposing goaltenders and scouting goaltenders coming up. Arthur Silovs is one who's the Canucks' third goaltender now with DiPietro down in Utica. He was someone that was an Ian Clark pick. And you look at the Columbus goaltending factory that it is now. They let Bobrovsky go, and then they've got Corpus Salo and Elvis Merzlikins, and then they've also got a couple others. That's all Ian Clark. So for me, Ian Clark is a must have, and the Aquilini and Benning need to find a way to keep him. And unfortunately, based off of what I've heard from people like Kevin Woodley and Rick Dollywall and others, I'm really not confident that they're gonna be able to get it done.
That would be too bad, for sure. One of my final ones, and there's other things we can get into here, but in terms of players, is JT Miller on your lotto line, or is JT Miller your third center?
Go ahead. Yeah,
I was about to say, for me, ideally you want him on the lotto line. You need to find a third line center elsewhere. Yep. But if they can't do that, then him trying to pair players up and build three good lines isn't a bad idea.
I agree with Sean in the sense that you need to keep him up near the top of the lineup, just because I think all the stuff that he brings, you can utilize those skills best when he's in a top six role. That being said, if you need him to substitute as a third line center for a small period of time, I'm perfectly okay with that, but I just wouldn't want to see that long term.
Yeah, it looks good on paper. Pettersson, Horvat, Miller down the middle. That's quite an enviable, top three centers. But it thins out pretty quick on the wings after Besser and Pearson. We're hopeful for Hoglander. We're hopeful for Podkolzin. But yeah, I still like something of a lotto line. Horvat, Pearson, one of Podkolzin or Hoglander, then the other guy playing with Mott and a third line center. And that to me is a nice top nine for next year. Does Colin do enough to at least earn a shot at maybe a third center? And then you have Boyd or Beagle coming back. Is that strong enough down the middle? I'm not so sure. It definitely sounds better when Miller's in the middle, but I don't think we have the wing depth to go for it. But you're right. You can start the game that way. And then when we're down one or up one, or depending on game situation, coaches adjust by the second period anyways.
You want the depth, but if he's one of your top players, he needs to be playing on the top line, period. He need the more that you play, the more you get in the rhythm of the game. Unless you're going to be rolling three lines and you're dispersing that evenly, that is the only time that makes sense to me, putting him on the third line. Otherwise, he needs to be on that top two units.
Yeah, and the only way that it works is if Cole Lind and Podkolzin come in and hit.
Yeah,
like they come in and are legit top nine wingers. Because if you do that, then you can put together some sort of, you pair Petey and Besser together, you pair Horvat and Pearson together, and you pair Miller and Podkolzin together. You throw in Tyler Mott on that line with Miller. You've got an absolute amazing a line that could be a really tough matchup for other opposing teams. And then you have to find a left winger for Petey and Besser. Maybe that's Hoglander, and then you throw Cole Lind on the right with Bo and Tanner. That would work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of you're basically you're hoping that two rookies are stepping up into your top nine and being ready to go and stepping in and not missing a beat.
Along with it, yes.
Yeah. I actually have two. Okay, I have one more, and then for me, and then maybe you guys have one more as well. But is Jim Benning back next year? I know Tyler will say yes.
You guys know my opinion on Benning.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it, Devin. I want to hear it.
Okay, I think he's mismanaged the majority of his tenure. I don't think that he is a aha moment being like, yeah, he's a great GM. The only reason why he's in there is because he's a little puppet for the Aquilinis, in my mind. He's the yes man, and he does what the Aquilinis want because they love being very much a part of the Canucks. And if I was an owner, I would too, but that is so detrimental to your organization and what he's done lately, and his entire tenure, just it doesn't scream a yes coming back next year.
For me, I would probably say I realistically don't want him back, but I also think that the likelihood of him being back is high. So it's that internal battle for me. Yeah. I'm trying to find the words to describe what I'm feeling, but I'm not quite hitting it. So I'm going to let Sean or Clay go.
For me, I think it all comes down to how true were those reports that the players, how upset they were with the communication coming through the COVID outbreak and coming back. If those reports are true, I think he's gone, because I think Aquilini will look at that and say, you've got Pettersson and Hughes that need new contracts, and they're your cornerstones. And he hasn't. And if they're upset, if your captain Bo Horvat's upset, if JT Miller, who's the heart, he's the heartbeat of the Canucks, right? If they're upset, you have to make a change, because otherwise you're losing. You're not going to have them long term. And who else is going to come sign? Are you going to be able to attract good free agents to come in and fill out your roster? No. So if there's any truth to those rumors, reports that there's some unrest with the players and the management, I think it's an easy decision to move on from him and start fresh with someone else.
That chemistry and morale point is a really good point, Sean. And I agree. Devin used the term puppet. I agree with that. Chris, you said that despite all these negatives, there's a weird feeling around that he'll still be around. I actually kind of agree with that too. Would he have been able to sign those Pearson and Demko contracts if he wasn't going to be here to at least see a bit of them through? Maybe, maybe not. But you make such a good point. Can Aquilini, and we're stuck with him as the owner, right? So unless he resigns himself, can Aquilini see through how much he likes Benning and how much, they're in sync? Yes, man, puppet, whatever you want to call it. And can he see through that and say, wow, we've made the playoffs twice, basically 1.5 times in the 7 years I've been here. And does, how well have I handled the Vertan thing? That's not his, obviously that's not his fault. The COVID thing, though, and how you manage it and the morale of your team, and just, do they want to play here and set your franchise up for down the road? So personally, I've met him. He's a nice guy. He's always been kind to me, and you never want to see anyone lose their job. But if we're talking about results-oriented business, there's been no results. And I think that's the bottom line.
I don't think he's back. Yes, he did get the permission to sign the Demko and the Pearson contracts. I will grant you that. But I think this COVID situation, hurt. And I know you're right, Clay. It's not Virtanen isn't his fault, but we haven't heard from him. We heard Travis Green was the one that had to answer the question yesterday. And I think to me, I don't see a leader there. I don't see a guy that's going to stand in front of this team. Go back to COVID. It was JT Miller that had to stand in front and speak on behalf of the team. If Brian Burke was in the Vancouver Canuck organization, he would have taken this and there would have been something quotable here. We would have had a quotable thing from Brian Burke. So I do think that this is going to affect Aquilini, and I'm 80% certain that Benny is not back next year. So I'm disagreeing with Tyler a bit. I think he is going to be. Who thinks? But I could see the start of the year if fans come back and we see a fire Benning chant. I think Aquilini is going to do something. My prediction is he doesn't last 2021.
When you talk about the Pearson and the Demko signings, those are all done before all this came out with the unrest about the COVID part.
That's
so
true.
I think that changed things a lot. And the other thing is, I believe that the rumors are out there that Benning's not doing the negotiation with Travis Green either. It's gone above him with Aquilini. So, I think I don't know if that's true or not, but I just look at that and look at how the Canucks, if those rumors are true that the players are upset with the management and the organization for the communication and support that they received through the COVID outbreak, I really think that was the turning point to when there was basically, Benning's going to stay for at least one more year, to maybe that's the reason they used to move on from him and start fresh.
I think it's a fair thing to say that outside of his drafting, he hasn't really done enough to impress to deserve another contract or an extension or anything like that. So, yeah, I think it's probably time to move on from him. I just don't have faith that it'll happen. So I'm hoping that Kev is right, but we'll see.
Yeah. Any other questions?
James brought up how we were pronouncing Nils's name, and yeah, he is right. It's not Hoglander. It's or Hoglander. It's Huglander. Almost Hug, but not quite there yet. I get it sometimes, and I get it. I call him Hoglander or Hoglander a lot of the time too. So,
that's good.
Ingrained in my brain too.
That's good on James.
Right. Good on James for sure.
By the way, Kevin, speaking of last names, I'm impressed. Chris knows where I'm going with this. I talk to him about this all the time. You nailed my last name of Emo. The way it's spelled, I-M-O-O. It looks like Imu or Emu because that's the way it's spelled. In Japanese, it's actually Imo. You say every vowel every syllable, but Imo just sounds like I'm stuttering. So I say Emo, and you nailed it correctly. So good job. You're one of the few. It's weird, man. It's like Caucasian guys can't say it, but you can, Kevin. So good job, man.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you. My last. Go ahead. Was someone going to say something?
Yeah, I have a question for Clay, and I'm curious on. I got two questions. So my first one is, what are your thoughts on Austin Matthews and the run he's gone on this year? Do you like? Where do you put this on the hierarchy of storylines within the NHL?
Oh, it's one of the top 5 storylines for sure. I've always been impressed by him. Devin, I didn't know that you were are you from Toronto, or you just really like the team?
I love the team. I love the Flames and the Leafs. So
okay, cool. So when Besser first came in the league, I don't know if you guys remember, they really hyped up this Besser-Matthews matchup in Toronto. I think it was in his rookie season. And I was kind of hoping, we didn't get Austin Matthews, but we did get, we got a guy just as good, right? And obviously that was maybe too positive, optimistic in my thinking. I'm so impressed with Matthews' game. I didn't know, because I didn't watch a lot of Maple Leafs games until the season. I didn't know how fast he was. I knew he was fast, but he's fast. But how quickly he gets off a shot, it's amazing. He's not even like the goals yesterday. The one of them where he's shooting from where his hands are tucked in, and the snap on his shot is absolutely crazy. And I've heard about how deceptive, and I've seen videos breaking down how deceptive his releases and everything. I just think, I don't know anything about their locker room. I don't know if he's a really good leader, kind of a good leader, Tavares, Matthew, blah, blah, blah. I just know on the ice, he is so impressive. He's not afraid to absorb body contact. He's not, even though he got knocked over by Jake Virtanen's butt, but that's okay. But his offensive skill is amazing. And I'm so impressed by him. He's at 38 goals right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. 38 goals.
Yeah, 38 goals, 12 game-winning goals this year. Wow. He's been unbelievable.
And Devin, has he put behind that whole Arizona goofy video escapade? Is that kind of behind him now?
It has to be going forward. We've all been young. We've done stupid stuff in the past. You got to look forward and not hold that against him either. Yes, but not forget it. It's just one of those things where positivity, right? I'm talking to a positive guy right here, down over there. You got to make sure that that's not the first thing that you think of when you think Austin Matthews. And like I said, we've all made stupid mistakes. So
my comment was more just about his maturity overall. Is he like considered a mature player and all that kind of thing? And if he is, that's awesome.
For sure. You see the camaraderie with that entire team, and especially with having such a big veteran presence of Joe Thornton, Jason Spetz, Tavares, and Jake Muzzin too. You got to think that he has had a positive effect with having those type of players around him. But my second question to you, Clay, is what are your thoughts on Brad Treliving and what he's done here with the Flames in Calgary?
Okay, well, I'll be honest. I'm not going to change my answer just because of what you told me 3 minutes ago. Calgary is my least favorite team. It's not. I don't hate them, but I think of a couple things. I think of the playoff battles in the late 80s, early 90s. I definitely think of the last time before last season the Canucks were in the playoffs is Michael Furlan and the team just steamrolled Vancouver in the 2015 playoffs. And then I think I didn't really like Goudreau. I don't mind Kachuk. I have him in all my fantasy leagues. And then the whole Miller Tanev, Mark Sherman Tanev. It's a nice story. Having said all that, I just as an outsider looking in, unbiased, I've always questioned the chemistry in that room. Because they're talented. They are so talented. Man, top to bottom, I'd argue they're more talented roster than the Canucks. And I know they got some good prospects too. At least my Calgary Flames friends tell me. But there's got to be something wrong if they're flaming out, no pun intended, flaming out the playoffs or not making the playoffs, battling with us in Ottawa for 5, 6, 7. There's something wrong in the room. I know they flip coaches. I know I don't know. I don't follow the team well enough, and I'm not wishing ill will on them. I just don't like them. But I don't know the story in behind. I don't know how strong of a leader Treliving is. Maybe you can enlighten me.
Rivalry still lives on.
Well, on this podcast, there's definitely varying degrees of, or I guess polar opposite, because I'm a big Brad Treliving guy, and the majority of the rest of the podcast doesn't really agree with me. So I was just curious on what your thoughts were.
Yeah, honestly, my disdain isn't towards him, like management coaches. It's not even to individual players, except for Goudreau. It's more I think our lack of success against the team and the Mark Sherman Tanev things is a fun storyline, but I have nothing against them for taking them or those two players for signing there for sure.
Yeah, just from my perspective, I think Treliving is overrated. I think he's done. I think he is willing to do things that Benning hasn't done. He's willing to try things, but the question around the success of it, that's the problem ultimately what it comes down to. And you're right. There's definitely has been a chemistry issue with this team for years, not just this year, not just last year. And I think Treliving has to wear some of that. I think he's going to get another year, though. That's just my opinion. I think they're going to go a full year with Treliving and Sutter and see what happens. That's just from my perspective. I think you look at his trade history; it's not as spectacular as people want to give it credit for, from my perspective. So Devin and I respectfully disagree on this.
Meanwhile, Devin and I just don't respectfully disagree on it.
We definitely have had a lot of heated conversations on this podcast.
I'll have to go look those up. The Battle of the Beards. I can't wait.
Yeah.
The sibling rivalry is real.
My last question, Clay, can you tell, from your perspective, as Chris has often said, Canuck Twitter is going to Canuck Twitter. And I think that there's been a perception that Canucks Twitter is a bit toxic, negative, all that. And you've been presented, you're a very positive guy. Do you see Canucks Twitter as negative, or is this just the time that we're in where this has just been brutal on so many levels of us? And it feels like a heavy question, but I wanted your perspective on it, because I don't know, maybe you see something that a lot of people don't. So I'm kind of curious how you are seeing what you're seeing on Canuck Twitter nowadays.
Okay, boys, set your alarm for about 5 minutes. I'm just kidding. I will say this. I think it is a both and. It's not an either or. It is negative, and it's been a crazy year. And Canucks Twitter is always going to find something to pick on. A banner flying over the sky, a guy, serious allegations, a little goofy, fun little promo that they're supposed to have where people like me were eating food in a penalty box, but there are no women in that ad. So and people, there's always something or they make a statement because of Black Lives Matter or something else, and the team hasn't gone far enough. People are always going to pick on something. Sometimes rightfully so. Sometimes I think it's a little unjustified. The whole reason why I started this fictitious club that somehow has hundreds of followers is the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club. The whole reason why you guys and Kevin that I started this club was to counteract a lot of the things that I saw on Twitter. And yes, it's just for fun. I always say only two things. You got to be positive. You got to be good looking. If I'm the founder, obviously standards are not super high, but it's self-admitting, all these things. And but it's true. It's not a shtick. It's not a thing where I'm Canuck Clay here and I'm Clay Emo here. And no, I'm the same person. And I think it comes from my outlook in life, my faith background, my family, whatever it is. But when it comes to Canucks Twitter specifically, I was getting sick and tired of seeing stuff. And everyone has the right, especially when you spend time, money. It's not about if you have season tickets or if you wear the best jerseys or if you have the most money. Everyone's allowed to express their fandom. I get that. But I saw so much on the negative side that I want to do something fun, tongue-in-cheek to counteract that. But it became more than a shtick at the start. At the start, it was a shtick. And now it's truly, I find it's a way for me to enter into conversations, meaningful conversations with people. And I think many people have lost the art of good communication. You and I, Devin, do not have to agree on Calgary and Vancouver at all. You do not have to agree with Sean. I don't have to agree with you, Kevin, on this, or you, Chris, on this, but we should be able to hear each other out, try and understand the other person's point of view and react to it. And that's fine, but it's not about getting the last word. Everyone's so tough behind a keyboard, 280 characters, press send and then walk away and not have to answer for anything. And then COVID doesn't help when we're not even meeting people face to face. It's even worse now. All to say, I am going for 5 minutes here, but all to say, we've lost the art of communication. We've lost the art of listening, and we've lost the art of seeking first to understand before being understood. I think people trust me. They might not agree with everything I say, but they trust that it's genuine. They trust that I'm being transparent, and they trust that I believe what I'm saying, but they also trust that I'm open to dissenting opinions, even if I don't agree with them. And notice I didn't say even if they're wrong. It's even if I don't agree with them. And I think that's where we've lost the art of discourse. And that's why I joke around about being conflict averse, but I'm kind of like argument averse when it comes to if I'm arguing with a brick wall, I'm just going to stop. There's no point. I'll speak my piece. I do not have to get the last word. I do not have to have the proverbial mic drop. I just recognize that there are people going to disagree with me, and I choose to handle it in this way. Thank you. I will get off of my soapbox now.
For what it's worth, I've always held you in high regard because of how you carry yourself like that.
Appreciate that, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, what you said like hits home. It's something I've thought multiple times, and it's something that all those things that I struggle with for sure. It's Devin knows more than anyone else how stubborn and pig-headed I can be when I get into a debate. And especially, as you said, I think
I've seen some of them, Sean, on Twitter.
It's so hard not to, when on Twitter too, when you're not seeing the nuance of how they're saying it and the facial expressions and seeing what they're you get a lot more with that, and as opposed to just words on a screen, and then you just get angry and start yelling and then angrily type away a response. But again, it's why I've been so focused on trying to stay out of that as much as possible now, and trying to be more positive, and not necessarily positive for the sake of being positive, but just finding the positives out of each game, finding again, Cole Lynn playing 17 minutes, and not looking out of place despite the Canucks losing.
Yeah.
a great save from Demko or Holtby, an amazing penalty kill shift from Roussel. I remember a few games back, before he got injured, unfortunately, and it's stuff like that. I think we need to be better at celebrating, because, as I said, it's so easy to be negative. It's so easy to nitpick when a play goes wrong, and you just, oh, there goes Tyler Myers again, or whatever, and then you don't balance it out with looking at the good plays that each player do make.
And you guys know it's easier when we're negative, when we are sarcastic. This is just human nature. More people will gravitate towards that, right? You'll get the extra like or the extra retweet, and without judging people's motivations, there are a lot of like, we all have decent sized followings, and people follow our stuff for whatever reason. But there are a lot of accounts that are a lot bigger than ours, even combined, and they have a platform and they choose to use it in a certain way. Whether you're the purveyor of a podcast, a vlog, a media member, or whatever, just someone, an influencer. And I think those people, maybe they got to be more careful, or they don't care. They know the influence they have, and they don't think of both sides of it.
All right, so Clay, you're flexing on having 5,800, almost 5,900 followers, when I'm just under 100. So,
hey,
with all due respect,
yeah. Hold on, all my lights went off. Hold on a sec. I gotta turn on my light. Hold on.
Yeah, who's gonna get to 100 first? Our YouTube subscribers or your Twitter account?
I can almost guarantee it's going to be the podcast, 100%.
So I feel like we might be going a little over on time, but I wanted to bring one last thing up before we potentially end the pod. Hey, Clay, do you remember this sweater?
Yes, if I can tell the story, guys. As it's funny,
absolutely.
Devin, as you were talking about flexing and stuff, and then by act of God, all my lights just went out in my room. I don't know if you guys saw that. So no, I do appreciate all you guys, and big or small followings. Yes, Chris was so good. I was going to do a video, one of my parody songs with Marie and with the Canucks, and they wanted me to wear a Christmas sweater, and I didn't have one, and the team store wasn't open, and they told me like the day before. So I'm not sure, Chris, if I put it out on Twitter, or I think I did. And then Chris, this guy,
you put out a tweet and then I DM'd you. Yeah.
Yes, this Saint here says, "Hey, I just bought a sweater. I have not even worn it yet, but you can break it in for me. You can christen it first and wear it in the video." So I wore it. I'm playing the piano, Marie's singing, looking good, singing good. And then I packaged it up and we sent it to Chris. And so, yes, you were my lifesaver that day. And I'm glad, I didn't stink it up bad enough where you still wear it to this day 5 years later. So thank you.
Yeah, I still wear it every Christmas. But yeah, no, I just thought that was a cool moment, that the fact that this sweater made it into an official Canucks video. So
yeah,
there we go. Awesome.
So everyone look up Canucks Christmas Carols Volume 1. That's the one. Awesome. Thanks, man.
A couple final things. Hey,
Sure.
Someone else ask a question. Yes, someone else can ask a question every once in a while here. It's not just me. Devin rocks it okay. Whatever that means. You rock it okay. But let's leave it here. Clay, tell us kind of what you've got going on coming up here.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I know was more familiar with some of you before, but I'm looking forward to following what you guys do. I appreciate you having me. I basically do all my Canucks content on YouTube and Twitter. Same username, as you can see, Canuck Clay for both. And on Twitter, just tweeting my thoughts, usually sharing a lot of things, or becoming an internet meme. One of those. I'm just kidding. One of those things. On YouTube itself, daily content, daily vlog. Today, I talked about Trampkin and Gadjevich. I do pregame previews, post-game live streams, which is a lot of fun, and a parody song and a haiku, thrown in for good measure. So Twitter or YouTube at Canuck Clay, and I appreciate everyone's support and people like you, fellow content creators. There's a lot of space for all of us, especially in a place like Vancouver. Look, we've talked for an hour and 20 minutes about a team that is 14 points out of a playoff spot. Like, there's no other market that's going to do that. And I want to affirm you guys for what you're doing as well.
Thank you. We totally appreciate that. And how do we follow everyone else?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
There we go. I was looking for that. Thank you. I was trying to find it myself.
You guys play that one more time. I just want to show you. Unfortunately, this is not slow motion. That's the embarrassing. That's real time.
And to get back on track, I'm at Schneid's on most social media.
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Tyler's T-Noble, T-N-O-B-L-E, IMKVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, YouTube.com. Subscribe to wherever you get your audio. It'll be out shortly. Clay, this was great. I really appreciate you taking the time, more than what was expected. And so thank you so much for that. And thanks everybody for watching, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.